looked at all those flags today,
millions of people
protesting kings
all over the country, including in very small towns in Republican-dominated states,
flying American flags and wearing American paraphernalia, quoting from the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, reclaiming those symbols. And I thought, man, does this look like 1864 to me, where a coalition group led by a party, by the Democrats, say, let's rethink what it means to be an American. And if in fact that holds, it's a new era.
Good evening. I'm Jen Rubin, editor-in-chief of the Contrarian.
And I'm Norm Eisen, publisher and litigator-in-chief of the Contrarian.
Hey, Norm, it was so uplifting. The crowds were enormous. But more than anything, it was just the vibe on the ground. People were so joyful. What was your sense when you were out there?
Well, Jen, I'll be showing you my sign later in the program. It was a feeling of patriotism, of pride to be an American, of seeing millions across our country stand up, not only large rallies in big cities, but in small towns, in rural areas, over 2,700, 7 million people, Jen.
Amazing.
And a spirit of joy, of love, peace, and standing up for our Constitution and our democracy.
Absolutely. Now, our opening tape had footage from June. That was the first No King's Day. And you know what? That was 5 million. That was the biggest protest in America to date. And today, 2 million more people showed up. Here's the map. You can see the number of events, and those are just the official ones. I am certain that people organized on their own in their town. And what impressed me was how deeply it has penetrated into red America. And I think in all of American history, there have been lots of demonstrations, lots of events, but the geographic penetration to all 50 states around the world, by the way. There were overseas events as well. But I think we might have someone joining us who's responsible for a lot of this.
I'm so delighted to welcome our first guest tonight, a dear friend of Jen and mine, Ezra Levin, the co-founder and co-executive director of Indivisible, one of the leaders of setting up today's events, has been named by Time magazine as one of the 100 most influential people in the world. And prior to founding Indivisible, Ezra was associate director of federal policy for Prosperity Now, a national anti-poverty nonprofit. And Jen, he's feeding the autocracy and building the prosperity of democracy. Welcome, Ezra.
Norm, it is great to be with y'all. There are no two people I'd rather be debriefing this incredible day with than the leaders of the Contrarian. Y'all are a pillar of democracy, and you're getting stronger to be with y'all tonight.
Well, we love working with you, Ezra. You know, you and your wife, Leah, in the wake of 2016, formed Indivisible. Did you ever think that you would be speaking to a crowd of over 2,000 people in DC and 7 million nationwide?
Jen, it was a Google Doc. That's what we put out. We had hoped that Google Doc would be useful for people around the country. We didn't think people were going to read it, let alone do much with it. So no, this is an utter shock. But I want to be clear. I'm not the leader of this movement. This isn't about me. I happen to be talking to y'all, and it's an honor to be doing that. But this movement that we see all over the country, all over the world. This is normal everyday people. This isn't some magician behind the scenes. This isn't some top level structure. The way we get to 7 million people, the way we get to more than 2,700 events is people look to their left and their right. They look up and down and they say, well, I guess I got to do it. And that's how we get this done. And it's a real honor to be part of a huge people powered movement like this.
Ezra, we participated in the first No Kings and the Hands Off movement, but today, and those were wonderful, but today felt a little different. Would you just reflect for a minute on some of the differences in the trajectories of these major events?
I do have kind of chills just thinking about it. I have this repeated experience watching this footage and coming out of the event in DC where we doubled the size from the hands-off rallies. I think No Kings 1 took people by surprise. It took a lot of the ecosystem by surprise. The Republican Party wasn't on the attack yet at that point. They weren't really taking note of it. Mike, when you have Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, spend the 10 days leading up to the protest claiming that you're Antifa, claiming that you're terrorists, claiming that you hate America, like, part of me, I just laugh, and part of me thanks him for the free publicity. And then after going through this day and seeing 7 million people out in 2,700 locations, and to Jen, your point, I think it was more than that because many were just impromptu or unregistered. And just to see this embrace of American values, this embrace of the flag, of patriotism, it gives me chills. It gives me it really does, and it's hard not to sound just schmaltzy about all this. But gosh, I can't help but feel optimistic about the future after being part of this. You see in those crowds that this isn't the Trump era. This is the No Kings era. He's just living in it.
The Contrarian is a schmaltz safe zone, Ezra.
Exactly. Yiddish is our second language around here, Ezra. One of the things, as you said, that I think a lot of people mentioned was they really got their dander up when we were called pro-Hamas, terrorists, Antifa. You can't really buy publicity like that. But in all of these demonstrations, more than 2,700, I am unaware of a single act of violence, a single arrest, a single police incident. That is extraordinary.
It's incredible. It's not by accident. I think this speaks to a combination of the preparation that was done. We trained tens of thousands of volunteers in safety and de-escalation. We trained thousands of marshals. Every single one of the 2,600 events, 2,700 events plus on the map had a safety lead and a safety plan.
Wow.
Also, it speaks to who is organizing here. You see this in the pictures, you see this in the videos, you see this if you go out. These are moms and grandmas. They're bringing their dogs in funny costumes. There are great signs. There are veterans. There are teachers. There are normal everyday Americans. And I will say, I also think this speaks to the other side, to the side that Donald Trump says is angry and won't put up with this, and there's going to be violence. He tries to make us think that even if we disagree so much that we hate each other enough to hurt each other. And we saw in 2,700 events throughout the country, I'm not saying there aren't bad actors out there, but you don't put on an event like this. You don't mobilize this number of people when the fractures in the country are so deep in the way that Donald Trump says they are. It's just not true. We're revealing that lie for what it is. And this does give me hope. It gives me hope that even if we disagree on policies, even if we voted a different way in the last election, that doesn't mean it has to come to blows. We can peacefully disagree with one another. We can peacefully voice our opposition to this regime, and then we can move forward.
Ezra, the last time we did not have an anchor event in DC. This time you chose to have an anchor event in DC. Why was that?
Well, so the No Kings 1, we did not have an anchor event specifically because No Kings 1 was structured as a contrast with Trump's ridiculous military birthday parade. And we did not want conflict with his little birthday party. We wanted him looking like the pathetic, puny, weakling, lame duck president that he was. and us to show up in force everywhere else in the country. Now, on Hands Off in April, we did have a DC rally. There were 100,000 people out. It was a lot of fun. We doubled that for this No Kings. And it's important for us to be showing up into DC right now because DC is occupied territory. The federal government has taken it over, has National Guard troops in the streets, and is preventing the residents of DC from exercising self-governance. So I thought it was very important that we show up, that DC residents are not going to stand for this. But, I will say, as incredible as 200,000 people in DC is, I'm from rural Texas. I'm from a place with well water and chickens. What I like seeing small little events in red rural America. Where I grew up, there were 3 events in the county in Hays, Texas. We had in Jenner, California, a population of 122. We had 15 events in Alaska. We had events on every single one of the Hawaiian Islands, 4 on the Big Island. I mean, this was everywhere. This wasn't a story of blue America rising up. This wasn't a story of big city centers expressing their values. This was a sense of Americans expressing their opposition to monarchical rule. I think that's what's really powerful.
Absolutely. Ezra, we cannot thank you enough, not only for being with us, but all of the legwork. We know how hard everyone has been working. So get a good night's sleep because tomorrow we all get back to work. So thank you, and we'll see you soon.
Let me encourage everybody to join on Tuesday for the follow-up call. Go to nokings.org to sign up because we're going to be talking about what comes next, and there's a lot that comes up next. And thank you to all the contrarians. We need free and independent and pro-democracy media in this country. So keep watching, keep subscribing, keep supporting. We're with y'all.
Thanks, Ezra.
Well, Norm, in the background, we were seeing amazing crowds from Chicago, from New York, more people in Times Square today than are there on New Year's Eve, if you can believe it.
Well, and they weren't as intoxicated as on New Year's Eve either. They were high on democracy only.
Exactly. Now, our next guest is always high on democracy. Carlos Espina is a well-known figure. He has about 20 million social media followers. He is an immigrant from the country of Uruguay. He is a lawyer, went to law school in this country. He has organized, he has spent his life working with immigrants and for people and with people who this administration would like to marginalize. Carlos, welcome.
Hey, what's up? Can y'all hear me? All good?
We do.
Hey, Carlos. Thank you for joining us on the move as ever.
Yeah, no, I was just playing soccer, despite everything going on, life goes on. And so I love to play soccer Saturday. So I play almost every single day. It's one of the ways I stay connected with the community. So I was like, I have a game today, but I also want to do this interview. So let's make it work. I asked for a sub, came into the car. Gonna do the interview and then go back in the game. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here and on such a special day, especially.
We're a little off script, but it reminds me of the early days of the Contrarian when I would do morning coffee with the Contrarian from the back of a car going to court with all
exactly
cases and matters that the Contrarians support. Carlos, what made you decide to be a part of this mass mobilization today? Because I know Carlos is a good friend of the Contrarian. You sat out the last one. Tell us what made you decide to participate today.
Well, I think now more than ever, right, we all have a duty to stand up for what we believe in and stand up for our democracy. You mentioned a lot of democracy before I got on the show, and I think that's just super important. And a lot of times, especially on social media, you get the usual comments of, oh, why are you protesting this, and that, especially when it comes to, immigrants. People say, oh, you shouldn't be doing this. But at the end of the day, it's in the First Amendment of the Constitution, right? The right to peacefully assemble and protest. So I think it's just so important, especially those of us who have the ability to do so safely. There's a lot of people right now who are scared, whether it be because of their immigration status or something else, who are living in fear. They're hiding. They can't be out there. So those of us who can, we have a duty to do exactly that.
Absolutely. Carlos, you're coming to us from Texas. You're in the Houston area. Texas has been the site of a lot of controversy, an attempt to steal a bunch of seats. What's been the atmosphere in Texas? Are Democrats and independents, never Trumpers, are they getting more engaged after
Yeah.
that stunt?
Well, the last time I was on the show, I mentioned how I'm hopeful because we have a lot of good candidates running. And thankfully, between last show and this show, I got to meet one of them. So last Tuesday, I was with James Tallarico. We got coffee here in Houston. We had a good time chatting. And, after speaking to him, I feel more energized than ever because I realized that at the end of the day, Democrats haven't won much in Texas in the last few years, but I think part of it has also been because we haven't had, that energy, that excitement around someone who can really rally us. And I feel, since Beto O'Rourke, I haven't really felt that energy. So now Tallarico in the scene with all the Trump stuff going on, I'm hopeful that, we can make a lot of improvements in Texas. And as far as the gerrymandering, I think it's going to backfire on them. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I am optimistic, especially in some of these districts where they're planning on Latinos voting, plus 20 for Trump, maybe like they did in some parts in the last election. But Latinos are not happy. Cost of groceries, cost of everything keeps going on. Immigration issues out of control. So I think, these 5 safe districts that they supposedly made aren't so safe as they make it seem. So, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, like I said, but I'm also not as pessimistic as some others are.
Carlos, how's the Latino community reacting to these illegal ICE raids and the brutality and the paramilitary behavior targeting migrants, but also sweeping in American citizens and children?
Yeah. So, I mean, before the election, and it was so frustrating because for me, it was like, I knew this was going to happen, but many people genuinely thought Trump is only going to focus on the worst of the worst. He's only going to focus on those who shouldn't be here. And he's only going to focus on those who have committed horrible crimes. We're seeing the exact opposite. Statistics show that over 70% of those being detained have no criminal record, have no nothing. They were just at a flea market in Chicago. So, you make a video about that and people are like, okay, these aren't the worst of the worst. These are just vendors who are trying to make a living. Especially now you have U.S. citizens. I think the statistics are like 170 have been detained since, Trump took office. People are looking around saying, okay, maybe I supported this guy because I thought he was going to clean things up, but he's making it a lot worse. So the support among Latinos for Trump is rapidly eroding. And I think it's going to continue this way unless there's some massive shift. But it doesn't seem he's budging. He seems full steam ahead with Stephen Miller, and it's not going to end up well.
Carlos, it is vital for young people to get involved. And you have always come to these things with such a sense of optimism, in part, I think, because you're an immigrant, because you believe in this country. Are we getting better at engaging people who are in their 20s, in their 30s, who may have felt like the American dream is passing them by, or they're not going to be as well off as their parents?
Yeah, I think it's exactly that you mentioned. How do we speak to people and relate everyday problems to real solutions that we have? And I think that's where, unfortunately, Donald Trump was really effective. He was on these podcasts, he was on these shows, and he was speaking to people to where they were at. And I mean, what I've seen recently is on TikTok, the algorithm has changed. The vibe has changed. Whereas, now we're seeing a lot more content critical of Trump. Even people like Joe Rogan who supported Trump are now coming out and saying, hey, I think this guy's going a little bit too far. So I think what many don't understand about the young community is that we constantly have to be, educating and making content because, unfortunately, there's a lot of young people in this country who had 3-4 years of the pandemic. They didn't get the full educational experience they should have had. They maybe fell behind. They, didn't get to see the real world for many years. So I think we need to have a lot of work to do. It's a constant everyday struggle, but I do think things are improving, and I'm hopeful that this time around, young people will be a little bit more prepared to vote than they were last time.
Carlos, what do you make of the White House targeting Antifa? Did you see large numbers of people marching and chanting, "We are Antifa" today? Or were there any Antifa in your soccer game?
Yeah. So, I mean, something that's really worked for me on social media is, right, this is a very common tactic that's been used in Latin America, right? You just create another enemy, whether it's something very broad, right? That it could be your neighbor, it could be your friend. Anyone can be Antifa because what is Antifa, So I think even that is going to backfire on them as well because people are saying, hey, well, I went march, Caroline Levitt the other day said the Democrat Party, their base is terrorists and all this and that. And an average American says, hey, I'm a Republican, but my friend that I play soccer with, he's a Democrat and he's not a terrorist. He's not Antifa. So I think they're I think they're just going too far with this narrative, right? That all Democrats are terrorists and this and that. And it's really going to backfire on them in the ballot boxes. People are just fed up and they say, hey, we might think different, but you're not a terrorist. You're not an enemy of this country. So I don't think it's going to end well for them democratically.
Well, Carlos, we're so pleased to have you as a part of the Contrarian family. You're kind of one of our ambassadors to the next generation. Not that Jen and I are not extremely popular with those in their teens and 20s, but we're very fortunate. We're very fortunate to have you as part of our Contrarian world.
No, I'm very fortunate as well, and I like that. I'm gonna put that in my bio, Ambassador of the Contrarian. That's a good title to have. So thank you very much, and keep up the great work. And better days will come. That's how I always close, and I'm hopeful about it.
Thanks, Carlos. And friends, we're going to come to you. We know there's a developing situation on the ground in Portland. We have our colleagues there, and we're going to come to you with a report on that. But first, Jen Rubin, our editor-in-chief, has a very special interview she's going to introduce.
I do. Yesterday, I sat down with my favorite contemporary historian, Heather Cox Richardson. Of course, her letters from an American are really not to be missed. Over 1 million people follow her. And I wanted to talk to her about how to think about Trump, put him in perspective. So here's the first part of that interview. We'll have more of it later in the program. I wanted to ask you about basically two visions of America that really seem to be at the heart of this. And one is a definition of America as a monoculture, with a specific time, a specific ethnicity, a specific religious bent, and another vision of America that is obviously much more inclusive. There haven't been too many success stories in multicultural democracy, and yet we've clung to this. Do you see that this is sustainable? How do you see the balance of these two visions of America operating?
The idea of a multicultural democracy in the United States of America, which is a huge country, has always been aspirational. And at the same time, as you say, we have always had a significant portion of this country that has a fantasy of a world dominated by a very few, usually white men, that control the lives of everybody else. Those things have been in tension throughout our history. But I don't think that you can look at the concept of multicultural democracy simply as the contrast to that reactionary, illiberal vision of the United States. That is, if you think about our history, really what defines America is not the achievement of the goals that the founders set out, but the struggle to achieve them. And if you think about the struggle to achieve them, because we will never have a perfect society by definition, because people gonna people, right? If you think about the foundation of America and the defining nature of America as being about the struggle to achieve a more perfect union, then the centrality of that struggle in all the populations that have been excluded from it at different times, and that's not just racial and gender minorities, that's also white laborers, people who are differently able. There has always been a group that has not persisted or not been part of the American achievement of those goals. If you think about our story as being one of struggle, that the heart of who we are is the struggle, not the achievement, then that not only have we achieved a multicultural democracy in a sense, we're achieving it every day. And so in a way, there is almost a philosophical difference, not just a difference on the ground of what the reactionary version of America versus the progressive version of America looks like. There's a theoretical difference between we can achieve it and we have achieved it somewhere in the past, which is what authoritarians always argue. But on the one hand, that idea of sort of a static it existed and we could get it back, versus this incredibly dynamic, it has never existed, but that's the point. We're always trying to get closer to it. And that, as I say, is extraordinarily creative, and I think a really good way to think about who we are as a country.
And it gives us great pride, I think, and strength to know that we are part of that tradition that has gone on. And it also explains in every generation, the established class has used invective to try to minimize, marginalize the protesters. Now we're supposedly all Antifa were supposedly Hamas. A generation or two ago, it was communists. It seems that the same playbook evolves from the ruling class to try to de-link these protests, to try to marginalize, to try to write them off so they don't become really significant mass movement.
I think that's right. And I think one of the things that those of us who care about American democracy should grab more firmly is the fact that it has been the attempt to achieve democracy in our history that has given us our very best moments. It brings together somebody like, God, I hate to say it because people know how I feel about him, but brings together somebody like Thomas Jefferson and Fannie Lou Hamer or Barbara Jordan, Sitting Bull, the people who have been saying all along that what the American experiment was always about was how to create a government that reflected an individual's right and potential to create their own destiny. And that idea versus the idea that you should do as you are told is really the heart of what it means to be in America. And we ought to take that out for a spin and celebrate it. Because if you think about our greatest Americans, they have never been the ones saying, hey, let's go back to a world in which this group ruled over that group. They have always been the ones who say, we are stronger than that. We are better together, and we can create this large multicultural society in which we are all working for the greater good. And that is, I think, extraordinarily exciting.
And I think that is the perfect capstone to a day of mass protest and great joy. So thank you as always, Heather Cox Richardson. You are a American treasure. Of course, Letters from an American are a must read every single day. So thank you for joining us once again.
Thank you for having me, Jen.
Jen, that Heather Cox Richardson is a national treasure, and she gives voice to what we saw people expressing with their marching, with their signs, with song and dance, the love of the United States, the love of our country, the belief in our Constitution. And we saw that in cities across the country today.
Absolutely. And we do have great footage of some of the high profile cities. We have some footage, I think, of Los Angeles and Chicago and DC. Let's see if we can run some of that. And we'll take a look at, there we are, at the really massive crowds. I mean, that is a lot of people. And just getting people out of their cars in Los Angeles, Norm, is a feat unto itself.
I was thinking the same thing. Usually the traffic jam is on the freeway.
Exactly.
There it's on the overpass.
Exactly.
For love of America.
Absolutely. And, you know, LA is very high these days, as are we, because of the Dodgers. But it just shows you can do two things. You can keep your hobbies, your joy, your rooting fervor for your team, and you can keep rooting for America and really get out there. This is an awful lot of people. LA is not a city where people get out on the sidewalk and meet their neighbors or go places. It's a place where people are in their cars 90% of the time.
That does look like the lines at the Dodger Stadium concession stands, however. That is where you see the most concentrated pedestrians in LA. Today, they were standing up for the American idea.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, Norm, I think this kind of goes to what Ezra was saying and, you know, what Carlos was saying. trying to paint this as some kind of un-American activity was such a stupid thing to do. One of our dear friends, Tom Jocelyn, has a great saying, which is, they're stupid. They're also evil, but they're stupid. And that's why you get crowds like this in Chicago, which is ginormous. This is multiples of what we saw in June, which was already enormous. And you'll notice there's no confrontation, there's no violence. The crowds are big, but they're joyful. And I'm sure there, like we saw in DC, there's a few frogs, a few unicorns, a few people dressed in colonial garb.
The thing that authoritarians fear the most is mockery. Donald Trump wants us to be afraid. He wants us to be intimidated. He wants us to be scared. And particularly DC, as our friend Ezra of Indivisible noted, is a city under occupation. But you know what? The people aren't scared. And they turned out about 200,000 strong in DC.
Exactly. And there is DC, where I was earlier today. The crowd was enormous. I walked my way up to the stage, and then I walked backwards trying to find the end of the crowd. It went all the way back past the Department of Justice, which is telling, since our Department of Justice has now been captured by cronies and crooks and really people who have no sense of justice. But the crowd was enormous. And I was impressed because there was a wide variety of age, ethnicity, background. You'll hear me later on talk to a few people. People came down from New York. They came from Pennsylvania. There were also a lot of people from DC, and they spoke in very heartfelt terms. They are sick of this occupation, this ridiculous waste of taxpayer effort and really money and resources. And I think what you see here is joy, but it's also kind of this steely determination. We're not going to let them take over our city. And as many American flags, there are also those DC flags that are out. And at least in my neighborhood, probably in yours, you will see a number of DC flags, which you never used to see before.
Yeah, it was quite something to see the DC protests. You know, Jen, it was so interesting for me because on my way to the main protest, there was a spontaneous demonstration that broke out in my neighborhood.
Yeah,
It was our Contrarian target demo, heavily represented here in Adams Morgan, where I live.
absolutely.
DC. And you had some wonderful conversations. Everybody knows it when our editor-in-chief is in the house.
Well, it was a lot of fun, and we're going to have some footage later on. Here we are. These frogs, these people in costumes. Norm, I think there were quite a few frogs and chickens out there today, and other kinds of characters out there as well. But I did have a chance to walk around DC at some length. And let's take a look at some of the people I spoke to, some of the things that I saw when I was out there.
Mainly that he's violating human rights and going against everything in the Constitution.
Now, I saw you made a fascist sign there. It says U.S. Marines of World War II.
Yeah, my dad's in there somewhere.
That's your dad.
Yeah, my dad.
Your dad. Now, where did he fight?
South Pacific in the islands.
My word.
Yeah.
And what would he have thought of this president and what he's doing?
We're giving him a heart attack. Yep.
Yeah.
Another one.
Yes. Well, we are well in advance of noon, and it is jamming up around the Capitol. We got people out with signs. We have a sign right here. GOP, stop hating your fellow Americans. We love America.
I know. I'm sorry. I watch you all the time.
Thank you very much. Festive. I don't see any pro-Hamas, pro-Antifa, pro-terrorist people out. I see a lot of very happy people. Rachel. What's your name?
Rachel.
Where are you from, Rachel?
I'm originally from Indiana, but I live here in Arlington now.
And what about you?
Laura, live in Reston, Virginia, originally from Los Angeles. I'm a veteran.
Now, you are a veteran. Thank you for your service. What service were you in, and where
Air
did you?
Force, 10 years active duty. I was active duty during Desert Storm, so I was over in Germany at the time.
Thank you. Wow. So I just have a question for you. Are you a member of Antifa?
No.
Are you a terrorist?
No.
Do you hate America?
No.
In fact, you have a sign there, and you seem to take this very literally.
Oh, absolutely.
Are you a member of Antifa?
No.
You were in the military.
Yes.
For 10 years. You served your
quite the
country.
opposite.
You served your country.
Yes.
I don't think Trump served, come to think of it.
No, he did not.
Yeah. What's your name?
Joan Claxton.
Joan, are you a member of Antifa?
No, but I did see someone over there with a coat that said her name was Aunt Aoife.
Ah.
And she looked very nice.
She did. So you're not a terrorist?
I am not a terrorist.
Pro-Hamas?
No. Oh, no.
And do you hate America?
I love America. I have participated in protests since the 60s in high school in Bethesda, Chevy Chase, Maryland. We shut down East-West Highway. We wore black armbands, and I've been at every protest since, and I will continue to be at every protest as long as I have the power of free speech.
That's fabulous. Show us your sign. Wow. What's your name, sir?
Hi, my name is Dan Mitchell.
And Dan, you're not a paid protester?
I am not a paid protester. I was looking for the kiosk and I'm not seeing any checks.
Are you a member of Antifa?
Well, my grandfathers were. I'm wearing his World War II dog tag. So they were the original Antifa in my family.
Your sign says, "We don't hate America, we hate what they are doing to it." When you hear these people say, you hate America, or you're pro-terrorist, what do you think?
I totally disagree with them. I mean, we don't hate America. We hate what's going on in America today.
What do you think when Trump tries to say he's the real America and everybody else isn't?
Makes me want to puke. Lies have become normalized. What's wrong with you people?
It just shows how adolescent they are. Name calling, saying that people are really these terrible things just don't make any sense. We're all Americans. We're all, our leaders should be representing us regardless of our political affiliation. Of course they have their voters, but they're supposed to be for all Americans.
If the idea was to try to tar this mammoth crowd as anti-American or a bunch of haters or terrorists, they have failed. I have never seen so many people and spoken to so many people who are articulate spokespeople for democracy. When you hear them explain what it means to them, when someone pulls out their grandfather's dog tags who fought against fascists, you really understand that the beating heart of democracy keeps going. This is an expression of citizen democracy. And you can see, as we look out on this enormous crowd of people, this is the real America. This is joy. This is patriotism. This is a willingness to sacrifice for their fellow Americans. And frankly, it gives me renewed hope. So I'm glad they tried to tar all of us. I'm glad they called us Antifa or terrorists, because this shows how out of touch they are with the entire American experience. And it shows that the people carrying the flags, who are singing, who are dancing, represent the true spirit of America. If you had to...
Jen, I loved watching that, and the search for Antifa continues.
Exactly.
How ridiculous. The amazing thing about watching you with the DC crowds was to note the distinct character of each city. DC has one personality. We saw a different one in New York, Chicago, but Portland has been very, very special in how they've dealt with this. They've been getting froggy, naked, and creative. We're going to have our Contrarian colleague, our newest member of the Contrarian family, Tim Dickinson, coming up live later from Portland. But first, we're going to head south down to Los Angeles, where another very special member of our Contrarian community.
Exactly. And there is one person who has become such an intimate part of our team, who, wherever she is in the country, brings joy, brings news, brings her amazing contacts, and has the most remarkable conversations on her Thursday tea. April Ryan, welcome.
Hello, Jen. Hey, Norm. Oh my gosh, I loved your montage out in the street. Are you Antifa? Where is Antifa? I don't know whose Antifa is, but I loved it, Jen. She's not my aunt. It was really good. I really appreciate
it. Thank you.
Well, April,
yes.
You have covered the evolution of Donald Trump's leadership. You saw him, he was up close, and there's a quality that unites a lot of his policies, and we see that. He's targeting cities with Black leadership. What is going on with this man, April? I don't think the apple falls very far from the tree, by the way, if you're familiar with the family history.
What's going on? I mean, if it smells like it, it looks like it, and it tastes like it, it is it. It's racist, narcissistic behavior, dictatorial behavior as well. This president, just look at those who he's retaliated against, right? Tish James, Lisa Cook, James Comey, John Bolton. This man, number one, he doesn't want anyone to say he's wrong or expose anything about him. But then when it comes to race, he said in 1989, Norm, to Bryant Gumbel in an interview, you can chat GPT this one. He said, Black men and women who are highly educated fare better than white men and women who are highly educated. What is that saying? So he, in his system, that has been there for a long time when it comes to race. Think about those C's that he put on those housing applications. So he would not, when he was civilian Trump, working in real estate, when he didn't want Black families in any of his apartment buildings, he would put a C, colored for colored, C for colored, right? Think about this, the exonerated five, right? The exonerated five. These men, young Black men at the time, were accused of raping a woman jogging in Central Park. He still does not want to believe, still to this day, that they were innocent. He says, well, they said it. They were coerced as young people. DNA has proven. Now, if he had his way, these young Black men who are alive, one is a city councilman in Harlem, Yusef Salaam. Others tried to run for office. They would not be here today. It sounds really familiar. And think about this when we talk about Black cities. Think about what he did to South Africa. There's a tie there. How he tried. South Africa, a majority Black country on the continent of Africa, he smeared them as well, putting the wrong information about another country in front. He did show and tell for the South African president. He's done it to DC, that used to be called Chocolate City. He's now doing it to Chicago, the South Side, where Barack Obama is from. He's trying to do it. He's doing it in a Black city of Memphis, but it's a red state after people saying, oh, it's racist. Oh, it's racist. I asked that question, Norm and Jen, the first term on the weekend of Martin Luther King, the birthday weekend. Mr. President, are you a racist? We don't have to ask that anymore. We don't have to ask. And I felt so bad in asking, but you know what? And it took him 3 days to respond. Your actions speak louder than words. And I'm going to and I want to give this to you guys really fast. Apparently, they are watching what's happening. So the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, has gone on his little account, social media account, saying, breaking, J.D. Vance posted on Blue Sky. Do they have any idea how effing, I'm not going to say the word, weird and pathetic we think they are? Who cares what you think we look like? You are not the moral leader, or you don't pay my bills. Actually, you make us have to call and get some kind of extension for mortgage help. You don't pay bills. You don't do. Who cares what you think? Who cares?
Exactly. Exactly. April, the other thing he is trying to do is literally rewrite history. They are going to reinterpret, rewrite January 6th. And worse, they're going through our museums, our crown jewels of public education, the African American Museum. He doesn't want so much about slavery, he says. Why do you think he is so intent on focusing on history, the same way he's interested in focusing on what teachers are saying and trying to get, quote, DEI out of schools, which means teaching about Martin Luther King and other great African Americans?
And I'm glad you said Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King's statue or bust that used to sit in the Oval Office, he removed that. But he used to quote Martin Luther King, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. a lot. He doesn't even do that. He even moved the bust. This president is a racist. We have seen it, how he treats our Latino brothers and sisters. And now in Chicago, and we just had Father Michael Flager from the south side of Chicago from St. Sabina's Church. He even said they're actually now going after African Americans. And a lot of African Americans are carrying passports and real IDs because we meld into so many melting pots. We can be perceived as anyone. And I'm telling you, this president, he doesn't care. When he was having a problem with Iran, what did he start doing? Here in Los Angeles, where I am, he started going after Iranian people who he perceived as not being here legally. This president, it's about what he feels and what he thinks. The people out here today who are marching for No King's Day are not those people who are going to bow down to him. And it's unfortunate in those cabinet meetings, oh, Mr. President, how wonderful you are. Instead of getting to the issue, it's everyone bowing to him, including these tech guys, everyone from everywhere is bowing down to him. I mean, you have people going, I'm not going to say the companies, but you guys can look up the list of companies that support this president. And you wonder, changing and moving. This president has, he needs to feel like he matters, but he matters. And the thing of it is, he only matters to a certain sect that's racist and a sect that feels like they are losing out. He does not have an umbrella that's for me, for you, and Norm, I'm sorry, he doesn't have an umbrella for you because he doesn't like you either.
No,
he called you out.
It's like who does he like less, April or Norm? It must really infuriate him.
I think it's you because you go to court and win. It's
yes,
you.
Well, and that's thanks to you and Jen and all of our wonderful Contrarian family. Since we're owned by nobody, all profits go to support those over 200 cases and matters. And you know what else is important, April? You're out there in California. Prop 50, Gavin Newsom is standing up. Just very quickly before we say good evening to you, how is Prop 50 going to fare? This is to change the rules in California so when Donald Trump is getting those extra seats through redistricting in Texas, California is also going to change their system to balance out.
So Democrats, even Maryland is thinking about doing something. So here's what it is. It looks like it's going to work in his favor to a certain point. But think about this. Louisiana versus Calais. All right, let's go to the Supreme Court, what we just heard this week. There's two sides of this thing. If indeed Louisiana versus Calais works, you're going to lose people like Maxine Waters, who has a Latino district. And you got Gavin Newsom wanting to fight back. But where does it land? Donald Trump has 6 members of the U.S. Supreme Court, right? Who is on his side. We have to see how this lands. Then you have people like Al Green, who says he's going in Texas. He says he's going to file for articles of impeachment again, the 5th time, but his seat is in trouble. This redistricting thing is very tenuous. It is very scary. We just have to see how it lands. I hope it works out well. But here in California, these people are very upset about change. I'm a teacher, I'm a fellow at USC on Mondays. These students, this is what I like about California. They fight back and they're not afraid. These students fought back against Donald Trump when it came for them to decide whether they're going to go along with what he wants, with the ideology, right? And that would ensure more money. Well, that's what the Trump administration says. It would ensure more money for research. But they said, no, we don't want this racist, xenophobic ideology. So we have to see what the people say. I don't know. I mean, it's sticky.
Yeah,
I have a good feeling about it.
I do too. I think Prop 50 is going to carry the day. And
I pray.
You carry every day for us. It is such a joy to be with you. Stay safe. Enjoy Norman, my hometown, Los Angeles. And all of us will see you back next week, Thursday at April 14th. Take care.
Thanks, April.
Thanks, Norm. Bye-bye.
You know, Jen, we're so fortunate that we have a wonderful diversity of voices. Sometimes I have to pinch myself on what the two of us have built here at the Contrarian. And one of the great ones, also speaking to her generation and to every generation, is the Texas Democratic strategist and political activist, Olivia Juliana. She helped us start the Contrarian. She literally has been with us since day one. Welcome to our big No Kings 2 show, Olivia.
Hi, I'm happy to be here with y'all.
Oh, we are thrilled to have you. And you're in the Houston area as well. Now, you are following events and working for the resistance all the way up through today, but you didn't go out into the crowd. Tell us why and what you have been doing instead.
Yeah, I have been home today. I have been sharing videos that other people have been posting about their time at the No Kings protest and collecting clips for other influencers to help them post social media content. But I myself did not go to the protest in Houston today because when I went to the first No Kings protest in Houston earlier this year, I had 2 different men. One took pictures of me while I was there, posted them on his social media talking about me, and another one took a video of himself approaching the Houston police officers and told them that he was my boyfriend and gave a description of me and told them my name and asked them if they had seen me and if they could point him in my direction. He took this video and he posted it on social media because he is a more conservative influencer who's pretty well known for disrupting political events.
My word.
And so, in the time since that's happened, I've had to hire a security company to monitor, online to make sure nobody's sharing any of my personal information. But I felt like it was, for me personally, it was not a good choice for me to be there today. So I decided to be home instead to help in the ways that I could, which is on social media, which is what I do best.
Absolutely.
Well, Olivia, it goes to show that there's a lot of different ways to do democracy demonstration. And you did it with powerful impact in a way that was comfortable for you. And friends, we wanted to ask Olivia to share her story because it is part of the mosaic of what makes us, as we call it at the Contrarian, the democracy movement. Everybody brings their strengths to this movement, but everybody also has to do what they need to do to take care of themselves. Olivia, you are such an important voice among young people in our country. And it seems to Jen and me that as this democracy movement grows and evolves, we've gone from hands off, no kings one, no kings two. There's mounting youth involvement. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I certainly think it's a good thing. I think it's a great thing that we have more young people getting involved. And I think, Republicans have kind of have this mentality that, because they were able to swing so many young voters, especially young men, to their side in the last presidential election, I think they've gotten very cocky with that. And they think that that's kind of a guaranteed demographic for them. And I reject that. That's not true. Young people, young men in particular, they are not rigidly conservative. They were looking for someone to provide them with guidance and with answers. And in every social space they turned to, Republicans were there online and they were able to communicate with them. And I think now a lot of those same young people are realizing that none of the things that they were saying are true. And so they feel disillusioned, they feel betrayed, and they're trying to figure out how they can get involved and how they can prevent things like this from happening in the future, because this masked men ripping people off the streets and children being zip tied and people focusing on tariffs and bailouts for Argentina, that's not what young people voted for. That's not what young men voted for. And it's not why they voted for Donald Trump. So I'm certainly inspired to see it. I had a cousin of mine text me today, a cousin of mine who I've never talked about politics with, who has never, from my knowledge, been engaged in anything. She texted me today and asked me if I was at the protest in Houston because she was going. It's the first protest that she has ever been to. So
that's fabulous.
I'm so inspired by this.
That's fabulous. Olivia, I think what we've determined is the Republicans have blown it, but Democrats haven't made the sale yet. They haven't really convinced, particularly young people, people of color, that they are any better. If you could give some advice to those Democratic politicians, and you do, or if you could run some of their campaigns, which you do, what would you tell them in order to convince them not only not vote Republican, but to vote for Democrats?
Yeah, well, I do tell them, and I tell them in the Contrarian, so make sure you're subscribed if you're not. But I would tell them to be authentic, to be themselves, to talk about their actual lived experiences, and to understand that, we have to give young people something to vote for, not just something to vote against. So many people fail to understand that our frame of reference for politics is Donald Trump being president. I was in kindergarten when Barack Obama was elected president of the United States. So people in my generation don't know a functioning, normal Republican Party. They only know the politics of Donald Trump. And so I think that Democratic campaigns and politicians need to understand where young people are coming from, and then continue to be authentic and genuine in the way that they communicate with young people, which, by the way, happens on social media.
Well, whatever they may accuse us of here at the Contrarian, inauthenticity is not one of those things. And we love having you as part of our No Kings Day wrap and as part of the Contrarian effort. And Jen, Olivia even plugs for subscriptions, so you can't do better than that. Thanks for being.
Cannot. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here, Olivia.
Thank you. Norm, it is great to see people like Carlos, like Olivia, who are the next generation. They're going to be what gets us over the next generation. But we have another one of our Contrarian friends with us. And in fact, someone who was out there on the streets of Miami and she is going to come and talk to us because although Miami is a very red state, I understand that they had an enormous turnout, which kind of goes to our issue, Norm, that just because it's a red state doesn't mean that there aren't a ton of Democrats. And I think we have to get used to competing everywhere, going everywhere. Even if you can reduce the margins, then I think we can have some success. So we will get to Katie Phang, who is our woman on the ground. But first, let's go to the remainder of my conversation with Heather Cox Richardson. Heather, we are in the midst of unparalleled times in many respects. You look to the Cold War and you look to the Red Scare. It's hard to find a comparison to this administration, this level of violence, this level of corruption. What can you tell us from a historical point of view about this time?
It's a fascinating time, not only because we're seeing so much that's unprecedented, but also because of the echoes it has to a couple of periods in the 19th century. And, you know, we could talk about the 1850s and how the government got taken over by a small group of elite slaveholders who were trying to impose on the rest of the country their vision of a hierarchical society based in human enslavement. But one of the things that really jumps out to me as a scholar of Reconstruction is how much what is happening around us looks as if it is an attempt of the radical right that has taken over the Republican Party to put in place the sort of Southernification, if that were a word, of the entire country that looks very much like what happened in the American South from about 1874 to 1965. That is the imposition of a one-party state. And what that does to a region, which is, you know, we think about that era and the horrific conditions under which Black Americans lived. But the imposition of a one-party state also made capital flee. It meant that justice was completely arbitrary and therefore not justice at all, not only for Black Americans, but also for white Americans who weren't part of the ruling clique, if you will. And it retarded that region really dramatically in a way that didn't start to turn around until the New Deal in the 1930s. And that attempt to bring that sort of Confederate vision over the entire country is a terrifying one, but one that involves, I think, all Americans recognizing that this is a question of reestablishing our democracy and pushing back against the imposition of a dictatorial one-party state.
Absolutely. And one of the things that runs through both those time periods is the combination of gross inequality and oligarchy controlling the means of production, wealth, together with political power. That seems to be a parallel as one we're experiencing right now.
100%, but let me add a little bit to that. So one of the things about capital fleeing from the American South in that period is that the pie gets smaller. It's not just that all of the benefits of that pie go to a very few people. It's that the pie itself gets smaller. And if you think about what's happening in the United States today with the tariffs and the deportations and the takeover of a number of American businesses, in part by the US government, you're seeing a reduction in US economic growth. And the pie is ceasing to expand at the rate that it used to expand. So not only is this a system that puts a lot of power and wealth into the hands of a very few people, it's also a system that almost seems deliberately to be making that pie smaller, so that the smaller it is, the easier it is for a very few people to garner control over it. And that's an element of it that I don't think we pay a lot of attention to. It's important to have an expanding economy in which the wealth and the power is equitably distributed, or you do end up with a smaller and smaller pie that puts more wealth and power into a few hands and really hurts the living standards of the people who aren't part of that upper class.
We have also seen the development of a truly mass movement. Even before No King's Day, we had the largest geographic penetration, the most events of sustained protest in this country in history, even more than the civil rights movement, where much of the demonstration was in the South. What does that tell you about the current population and the prospects for reclaiming our democracy?
So again, it looks very much to me like the 1850s, the 1890s, the 1930s, and now again the present. And I first of all just say I love it, because what we are seeing is again pretty typical. When it looks as if the country is moving along okay and that people can have faith that their lives and the lives of their children will get better, they tend not to pay a lot of attention to what's going on in, especially in the federal government. But they just, as long as it's okay, nobody thinks to complain. When they start to realize that they are losing their democracy to a small cabal, as they did in the 1850s with the rise of a very powerful elite slave owning class, the 1890s when you get the robber barons, the 1920s when you see the concentration of commercial power, and so on in those periods, Americans start to look around and say, now wait just a minute here. What happened to the laws that were supposed to be fair? And while that might start in terms of recognizing that justice is not being served equitably in the sense that certain groups are being crushed in ways that others are not, it becomes not only a social but also an economic protest. And it's not really about those things so much as the fundamental American principles that were outlined way back in 1776 in the Declaration of Independence, that we all are created equal. Again, with the caveats that the founders did not recognize the rights of racial and gender minorities, but or the rights of women, but that we all are created equal, that we have a right to have a say in our government, and we have a right to equal access to the resources of the country, including education and healthcare, and we have a right to be treated equally before the law. Those were principles that are just as powerful today as they were in 1776. And one of the things that I love is seeing not only the demographics that in the past we have tended to associate with protests in the streets, in certain places that we have tended to associate with protests, but also the protests in small towns, in Republican-dominated states, and small, the people turning out are older white women, older white men, people in walkers saying, this is not the country that I knew, and I want to pass on to my children and my grandchildren and the people generations hence true American democracy. And when you get that, as you did in the 1860s, in the 1900s, the 1930s, and so on, you don't just get new laws, you get new concepts of democracy, you get new art, you get new literature, you get new ways of thinking about the world, you get new languages, you get new landscapes. And that kind of rebirth seems to me so perfect for what is just about the 250th anniversary of the United States of America.
Jen, that reflection, and in particular noting that democracy can grow and flourish in red states and not just in blue states, brings us to our next guest, another fantastic friend of the Contrarian, the great Katie Phang. Coming to us, Katie, from the state of Florida, Miami, Florida today.
It's so good to join the Contrarian always, and to be with you, Norm, and with you, Jen. And yes, my home is Miami, Florida. I jokingly like to say my furniture lives in Miami because I'm rarely there. But I will tell you, Norm, in a state like Florida, you would never think this, but we had more than 4,000 people show up in the streets of Miami. I had a chance to march and to be among them and to have significant conversations, but I wanted to bring you a little bit, a taste of these conversations. So watch and listen.
You because I saw your sign. I'm the scary trans person they warned you about. Why is it so critical for people to be having conversations like you and I are having right now?
I think it's important that you understand that trans people are actually people, they're human beings, they're your friends, they're your neighbors, they're not out to get you or to indoctrinate your kids, we're just trying to exist.
And how can people be allies, how can they help you?
Just listen to what, if you have a trans relative, listen what they say. If they ask you to use pronouns, try your best. I understand it can be hard, but they will recognize if you're trying.
So Sam, you know, this is a tough state to be in. This is Florida. I've lived here for decades. I have a little girl that I'm raising here, and I'm scared for their future, but I also believe that there's hope because you're out here and you're spending time with all of these thousands of people. How do you feel seeing this level of support right now?
It's honestly great because my school's a bit conservative, so seeing all these people out here is just amazing for me. It's really,
Alrighty, so why are you guys here today?
To save America.
Hell yeah.
To save our democracy. It's so frightening what's happening. I mean, the total disregard for law, for the Constitution, for people's rights. This isn't our country. You know, it's Trump land, and it's scary. And so I'm here to say we will not accept this.
We have Eden and the amazing Bubbles. I am in love, as you know, with all dogs, but especially Bubbles. Eden, why are you here today?
Oh my God, this is a time to protest. We've got to save our country. Our rights are being taken away one little bit at a time. If you're not paying attention, it's going to be gone before you know it.
Did you make all of these signs yourself? Account for every desaparecido that disappeared. That's right. He's snatching people off the street. When you vote for a clown, you get a circus. Republicans are pedophile protectors. Release the Epstein files. Why was it so key for you to make sure that this was the message that was going to be on your sign today?
Trump said he was going to release the files.
He campaigned on it. He promised he was going to release it once he was president.
And he did not, and that is just one of his list of lies. According to the New York Times, he lies, 1,000 times a day.
So I am here with Adi Ferro, one of the biggest voices for the Venezuelan community here. Adi, you and I had a chance to talk before, but since then, since our conversation, so much worse has befallen the Venezuelans. Talk about how the community is right now. What's going on?
The desperation is something that we are living with every single day. I have people that don't know what to do because even if they want to leave after the latest decision of Supreme Court granting the stay to the Trump administration, many of us, and that's something your audience probably don't know, we don't have IDs, we don't have passports, and we don't have a consulate. So many people that entered the country via south border, they just lost their IDs, their passports, and many of them got their passports taken away by the border patrol, and they never returned it to them. So at this point, even if many of them want to leave, not to stay here illegally, they cannot do it. En mi caso en particular, yo vengo de Venezuela, aunque tengo muchos años en los Estados Unidos y soy una orgullosa ciudadana estadounidense. Yo no quiero perder otra democracia. I already know how it feels. Yo sé, I come from the future, people. I know how an authoritarian regime feels like. I know it firsthand. That's the reason I am here. I am not willing to lose another democracy. We need to raise our voice pacifically. The Constitution protects us. We can do this. They need to know that we are not going to go to any kings or wannabe dictators. This is America, and we have the right to fight for our democracy, liberty, and freedom.
Katie, that was so powerful. When we were growing up, the big hit was Miami Vice. Remember that program?
Of
the
course.
Katie Phang show in the protest will be Miami Virtue.
Yes.
That is the new hit.
That's awesome.
Just the overall kind of vibe when you were out there. It seemed like a lot of happy people out there.
It was incredibly inspirational, Jen. I mean, you have to keep in mind, we are an incredibly diverse city. There were people from the Latino community, from the Black community, from the Asian community. I mean, I could go on and on, but it was inspirational, Jen and Norm. We live in a very red state. There were a lot of people that had concerns about how the law enforcement response was going to be to those of us on the streets. What you guys just saw right now, was just a snapshot of the many conversations I had, which included one man on his bike who actually had a red MAGA hat on. His name is Blas, and he is Cuban. And I took some time to interview him to ask him about why he was there. And you want to know what he said? He said, "I am here to exercise my right to protest." If you can believe it. And so I asked him, "Well, do you believe the rest of us should have the right as well?" He said, "Absolutely." He then said that he thought the economy was bad, Jen. He said that he thought the tariffs were bad. He's a long haul truck driver. He complained about not having work. He then said what's happening to immigrants is very bad because he also thought it was just, quote, the criminals only that were going to be taken away. But when I asked him, if you had to vote right now, who would you vote for? Incredibly, he said, "I vote for Donald Trump." He then said that it's not the Chinese or the Russians that are the danger to America, it's the Democrats. So I asked him to look around the crowd of thousands of people, all peacefully protesting. And I said, "Do you think we're terrorists?" And he said, "No." I mean, Jen, I wasn't going to change this man's mind today, but it was an incredibly civil conversation, one that was unexpected. But then later, Enrique Tarrio from the Proud Boys showed up with some of the Proud Boys. And there was a legitimate concern that there was going to be maybe something a little bit spicier. But in the end, interestingly, he didn't dress in the normal Proud Boy wear, the clothing and kind of like their getup, I guess.
Garb.
Their garb, yes, Norm. And you know what it was? He just went and they were instigating a little bit, but nothing that escalated. Why? Because today was not about violence. Today was about raising our voices in unity and in community. And I'm going to tell you, it was one of the most powerful moments. And in closing, I will say my 82-year-old mother, who is a registered Republican, who has never marched or protested 1 minute in her entire life, marched today in Miami with members of her church because she said she's fed up.
Wow. Wow. Well, Katie, as always, fabulous, fabulous stuff. And I'm sure, like us, it was just an emotional day for all of us, inspiration. And it was a great day. So we thank you, and we will see you back very soon.
I just want to say, I told everybody I was there on behalf of the Contrarian and Democracy Defenders Fund, and there was a overwhelmingly positive response. And so it was great to be able to share that with everyone who was there
Jen,
today.
that's such an important point because, like me, Katie is not only doing independent journalism here at the Contrarian, but we are litigating cases together around the country. So, Katie, so great to have you as a correspondent and a co-counsel.
Yes, I wear many hats, but I'm proud. And thank you again for this opportunity. And I'm so proud that I was able to spend this time today with my community and with this community here at the Contrarian.
Thanks so much, Katie. Norm, that was a powerful story that Katie told us about somebody. And someone had an interesting comment, which was that you don't actually convince people with a single argument. What you do is you make a connection and you begin to have a conversation. You begin to have a relationship. And slowly over time, even a guy in a MAGA hat may change his mind.
Jen, I think the next time Katie meets Mr. MAGA, he'll be wearing Contrarian merch.
Well, we certainly hope so.
We need to send him a merch pro-democracy gift bag. He's well on the way.
Well, he hasn't come over to our side yet, but we have someone who maybe can convince even that guy. And that is our newest Contrarian, Tim Dickinson, who I am thrilled is joining the Contrarian. This is his first official appearance. You have undoubtedly seen him on social media. For 20 years, he was a reporter, senior reporter with Rolling Stone. He is now a single and magnificent anchor for us in Portland. He is a senior political writer and editor for us. Welcome, welcome, Tim, to the Contrarian. We could not be happier to have you.
Guys, I couldn't be more happy to be here, and I couldn't be more happy to have this experience reporting on No Kings be my first entry point with our work together. So it's just an extraordinary day.
Absolutely. How long have you lived in Portland, Tim?
I've been here for about 12, 13 years, almost wow. Legitimate. I'm a California transplant, so I get a little bit of the side eye, but I'm almost legit now.
Yes, my Portland experiences suggest that you are not the first person to roll up north from Jen and my home state of California. Tim, you have been in the streets. You've seen the war-torn. I heard the streets were flowing with matcha, that the frogs jostled somebody and spilled their matcha today. Tell us what the spirit has been like in Portland, and in particular, that wonderful Portland weird, wacky irreverence with which the city has met the autocracy.
So there's one driveway in front of an ICE facility, which has been a fairly active place of protest. We have people in Portland who are dedicated activists, dedicated protesters who were down there all the time. And there has been some conflict, but it literally is a single driveway in front of this ICE facility where the feds come out in their riot gear and like to start launching tear gas and bashing heads. And so it can create some misleading visuals because the city itself has been very prosperous and peaceful as far as I can tell. And today was a chance for protesters in Portland, more normal people, moms, kids, dogs, grandmothers, people in mobility devices. It was a whole of Portland response to the lie that Portland is a war zone. And we're hearing right now the sounds of the unprecedented brass band, which has become sort of the house band of the No Kings movement. They were playing at the ICE facility last week, and their clarinetist got bumped up against by an ICE officer, arrested, and she was taken to Washington State, held overnight, and facing federal charges. And so this band has every reason to be angry, right? Every reason to be bitter, but they are meeting this moment of authoritarianism with joy, and they are out there playing their brass band music and leading a party atmosphere. And you go to a protest like this. I've been to many, and it takes a little bit of time for the protest to find its footing. Are people angry? Are people alarmed? And very quickly the sun was out. This became a citywide party, and it was a massive crowd. We have a city of bridges, right? And so there was a gathering by the waterfront, and the crowd went over one bridge, and then it came around on another bridge. And so you could see from one bridge a whole other bridge full of people. And I ran into our Congresswoman, Maxine Dexter. She estimated that there might be 100,000 people out there. It was a major event. It was, like I said, so many people, and people that you wouldn't expect. I ran into neighbors. I ran into friends. These are not professional protesters. These are not the Soros funded people. These are not Black Bloc. These are just citizens out there trying to redeem their city in the view of the public.
Tim, what has struck me in covering it from 3,000 miles away is that the city has been incredibly cohesive. You have the mayor, the city council, a lot of civic groups. They seem to have had a experience a few years ago where things went awry, and they seem to have come back from that with kind of a new sense of city solidarity. Is that what you've experienced there?
I have to say this was, meeting, one of our city councilors spoke today and talked about meeting unprecedented horrors with unprecedented unity. And I have to say that the Portland police have been guilty of many of the abusive tactics of the federal government. They've launched tear gas. It was a real bad scene a few years ago, but they really, today, we're just keeping the peace and making sure that everyone was safe and comfortable. I mean, the sketchiest thing that happened to me today is I had to ride my bike down there without a helmet on because I didn't want helmet hair. It was a lovely event, and I have to say my heart swelled. You would just meet people who were earnest, but also just like participating in this sense of whimsy and Halloweeniness. I think we have a tape of some Scooby-Doo fans who showed up as a family right out of the mystery van. I don't know if we can play that now.
The reason we're out here tonight.
Thank you so much. Tim here, and I've just met two members of the, Scooby-Doo gang. Zoinks! Does your sign say unmask ice villains and...
Greedy old white men are villains.
And now what brings you out here today?
Well, I just think that there's such an effort to create fear and intimidation that we need to show some joy and some humor. So we wanted to show up and be part of the conversation. Obviously thousands of people with us. And it's important that we show our voice in the streets. That's the whole point, is to force us into complicity and silence, and we're going to say no to that.
That's amazing. And where's Scooby?
Scooby, unfortunately, did not have papers, so he was detained by ICE. That's part of the reason we're out here tonight.
Thank you so much. Spirit here, that the answer to authoritarianism is absurdity and joy, because they don't know what to do with that. They want you to live in fear of what's going on. Their power depends on the perception of their power. And if you can laugh in the face of it, it really goes a long way towards diffusing it and telling everybody else that they don't have to be quite so frightened, although these are serious times.
Tim, if you were worried about having helmet hair, imagine what it's like to be in those frog costumes. The frogs have been on the front lines in Portland. Tell us about that, and I think you have some more tape for us there.
Yes, we have what's Operation Inflation is what's happening. We had the original frog, and then this has just taken off like wildfire, because it's very hard to have these pictures of these riot cops in their gas masks and their batons coming after inflatable people who are illuminated from within. There are frogs, there are chickens, there were inflatable aliens, there were inflatable polar bears, a lot of axolotls, both in pink and blue. And I did meet a member of the frog community, as we're calling them, who was really well spoken about why they were out there. I've met one of the frog people, and tell me your name.
My name's Katie.
And Katie, where are you from?
From Olympia, Washington.
And you said you were just here for a show and decided to stay for the protest?
Decided to come early for the protest. We're here for Hill Stomp.
That's amazing. No, tell me about your sign.
I am a peace frog, and I fully believe everyone has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
And what does the frog outfit mean to you? What is the vibe of the frog? The what is it? Antifa. Yep. United we ribbit.
So, to me, it is absolutely 180 degrees from the fascist BS we see coming down from the leadership of this country. It's about joy and inclusiveness and getting back to what freedom means to real Americans.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tim, they say that mocking autocracy is the best way to defeat it, or in other words, rib it.
Oh my gosh.
Tim, this is what you're going to have to put up with.
Watch out, we're going to have a dad joke.
This is we're safe for dad jokes here.
Exactly.
And speaking of dad jokes, Tim, we're excited to welcome our next guest. We're thrilled that you were able to be with us. Thank you for covering Portland. And
And we will see you, Tim, on Monday morning. Set your alarm clocks, folk, on the West Coast. Tim's going to get up really early. We feel bad about it, but not that bad about it. And he's going to be with us for Coffee with Contrarians. So
are we all going to wear inflatable costumes for the Coffee with the
Contrarians? I will not be in an inflatable
costume,
but maybe Tim will be. Tim, we could not be more happy to have you with us, and we will look forward to seeing you on Monday. So thanks so much. Thanks for the great reporting.
Friends, see you then. Thank you.
And many of the dad jokes that are my stock in trade, I learned from our next guest. He's a wonderful dad, one of our nation's brilliant journalists, and he brings not only a career of covering the news, presidencies, writing about presidents, but also really incisive insights into what's going on in our democracy. The great Jonathan Alter is with us. Hey, John.
Hi, Norm. It's so great to be here. Hi, Jen.
Hey.
What a great program. And you've captured the kind of carnival experience that I saw, on at the No Kings events today in New Jersey, and that's the right spirit. And I've meant to do this for a while. I'm not sure I did it properly. You gave me a lot of subscribers for Old Goats, my Substack newsletter. A lot of your subscribers also subscribe to Old Goats, and I'm really grateful to any of them who are watching now. You can subscribe free or paid, either way.
That's fabulous.
Anyway,
Jonathan, what strikes me is we have rarely had a president who is in such a closed bubble, who is so completely out of touch. You can think of Nixon kind of huddled in the White House, or you can think of Hoover when the bonus marchers were out there.
Yeah.
What happens in that White House when the president and the country are completely on different planets, different universes?
Well, you make a lot more mistakes, so your batting average goes down, and that doesn't mean your popularity craters all at once, but if you're cut off from criticism, and look, the White House press corps now is a bunch of flunkies and lackeys who really shouldn't call themselves journalists, the ones who are led into, not all of them, but most of the ones who are now led into those little moments in the Oval Office. But when you don't hear criticism, except maybe one or two people on Fox who they put on, you're cutting yourself off from important information to do a better job. But since Trump's not on the level anyway, the better job that he could conceivably do if he had more information would be bad things for the United States. But can I just say something about today, though, that
absolutely
a lot of people don't understand? So today was the second largest one-day demonstration in American history. The first largest was Earth Day, 1970, and I actually went to one of those protests as a 12-year-old in Chicago. But this is history making, and people go, well, it's not going to do any good. I even heard that from a couple of people I was talking to today at one of the events. That's not the way to look at this. What this is it's movement building. There's almost never a direct cause and effect between any one demonstration and social change. But there's a huge effect, cause and effect between people power, broadly speaking, and the movement building that it creates, and democracy. And so just to very quickly give you a statistic that I like, a half century ago, there were 40 democracies in the world. And today there are 88, 90, depending on how you measure it. But in other words, the number of democracies has doubled in the last half century. So on a historical continuum, why did that happen? Two-word answer: people power. In every one of those cases, it was people power that brought democracy to those nations that were often ruled by dictators. And the people power doesn't work all at once, but it's a mighty river that bursts through the dams that any authoritarian can build.
And John, we've seen the growth of this people power movement, where you had first the hands-off protests, then you had No Kings 1, 5 million. Now we've had No Kings 2, 7 million. And what's been remarkable is to see the geographic distribution. What do you make of that? 2,700 locations, including in deeply red places. What is the significance of that?
Well, I mean, that signifies that it's a true national movement, and the people who take part in it will tell their grandchildren someday that they were part of No Kings. But I think the other reason why it has spread so well is that it's a brilliantly conceived resistance movement. So we all know that all great ideas are very, very simple. And No Kings is brilliant because it's so capacious, and it can bring in so many people from so many parts of the country. And all you have to believe in order to be part of it are the founding principles of the United States. And so that brings in basically potentially everybody into this. And what's been so encouraging about this is, I actually worried in June when I went to the first No Kings that there would be people there with like Palestinian flags and, pushing for this cause or that cause. And often, let's be honest about it, like liberal critics can be sometimes, maybe too inclusive and letting everybody pursue their own, agenda, their own issues, whatever they might be. And instead, we saw none of this. It's all No Kings, and on those constitutional themes, done with great creativity. The signs are fantastic, and with great patriotism. So the only flags that you see at any of these events, contrary to what Trump and his great fear of all of this is saying, are American flags. This was not a hate America event, as the Trumpsters are claiming. It was a love America event. We love our country and we want it back. And J.D. Vance can joke all he wants. He put out a tweet of showing Trump being crowned as if that's okay, and they can convince everybody that's funny that Trump is. It's not fun. It's only funny when it's in the hands of the protesters. When the king is trying to make jokes about himself as king, not very funny.
Right. Right. Jonathan, one of the things we've seen just in the last month is a couple of these national revolutions, Nepal, and then there was another, are being lifted up by younger people, by Gen Z people. Yeah. When I go out in these crowds, it's a very mixed age movement. In the 60s, it was primarily young people. Here, it seems to be kind of cross-generational. Talk to us a little bit about age and kind of who comes out, how you do this, and why maybe some older people, frankly, people whose parents fought in World War II, feel so passionately in order to get out.
Yeah, I mean, it is cross-generational, but it's not cross-generational enough. It's skewed old.
Yeah.
Obviously, I like my Substack newsletter is called Old Goat, so I think we have
good marketing. Good marketing to the youth.
But there were too many old goats proportionally at these events. I mean, there were also young people, but the movement needs more young people. So
yes.
One of the tasks before us is to figure out how to engage more young people who they tend to be, they're cynical. They don't really believe that things can get better. And also, they didn't experience the anti-war movement, the environmental movement, the civil rights movement. See, all of this, like, look, people don't know how polluted it used to be, in this. But if you're too young, before Earth Day and those protests, they don't know how bad Jim Crow was before the civil rights protests. They don't know that the anti-war movement, although it went off the track and got a little violent with the Weather Underground, broadly speaking, younger people don't know that that movement ended the war in Vietnam. They don't know that people power in countries around the world has led to the end of dictatorships in dozens of countries. So they don't know the history. And the older people, I think, do know the history. And they also understand better than younger people what an aberration this is and how fundamentally un-American Trump and his people are acting.
One of the
Absolutely.
great things that we saw today, and it's been reflected on our show tonight, was the intergenerational nature. We saw middle-aged goats, young goats, kids in strollers.
No, they were there, but not
It
enough.
was a broad array, every
enough.
different goat generation. The amount of free marketing that you are getting for your Substack out of this metaphor.
But Norm, here's the challenge, right? So I got involved with this in my own family, where I challenged my kids to go, and they did. But we have to have a generational conversation. By the way, 6 months or whatever it is from now, we'll have another No Kings. Again, the pacing of it is also really smart. They don't try to do it every week. So we had one in June, now October, whenever they do it next year. I think between now and then, those of us who are a little older need to have conversations with our kids about why they really do need to show up. And we need to do, some outreach so that, yes, it was cross-generational, but it can be much more so. And also, it can be more racially integrated. We have to.
I agree.
We have to, reach out to African Americans, Latinos, and others, and say, join us, and that your values are at stake here as well.
John, thanks for being with us. Thanks for your wisdom. We're very proud the Contrarian family comes in all. There's
so
a
happy to
lot
be a
of
part of
it's
it.
a highly diverse goat pen.
By the way, just
at
one
the,
other
Contrarian.
thing. You got Tim Dickinson. He's one of the great reporters.
Yes.
He's done. You're getting really, really top flight reporters.
Thank you. Finally,
reporting
he's
the
promoting
Contrarian.
us instead of old
No.
goats.
I mean, the Contrarian's amazing.
Finally.
So you guys are really getting it done, and everybody is grateful to you, and it's kind of extraordinary how much progress you've made in just a few months. So congratulations.
Well, we are
Thank
blown
you,
away
John.
by our Contrarians. And thank you, Jonathan, for all you've done.
Yeah.
We appreciate
Absolutely.
you. We'll see you very soon. Well, Jen,
What a day. What a day.
What a show. I have to say, I've been pinching myself.
Norm, what Jonathan said, I think, was so true. And talking to people, and I wrote about it during the week, there are so many reasons, individual reasons why people would get out. They don't like the military being used as a prop. I spoke to vets. They don't like their neighbors being taken and bullied in communities. They don't like their civil liberties being taken away. They don't like Trump going after his political opponents.
And you know what else they don't like? The cost of corruption. Donald Trump's lining his own pockets to countless in excess by some estimates over $1.8 billion. And it comes, and the focus on self-interest for him and his cronies and his children, it's like the princeling princeling system of China. No kings, no princelings. And it comes at a cost. And his tariffs, his distraction from the economy, his random behavior, the cost of corruption, inflation is stubbornly mounting. The dollar, when he does this erratic behavior, goes down. That makes things more expensive for all of us. They didn't vote for Donald Trump to make the economy worse. And he's doing that as well as our rule of law, our civil liberties, and the cruelty to migrants to our countries. Carlos Espino was very eloquent about that.
Absolutely. And we are seeing video from literally all over the country, small towns, rural areas. Trump has this idea that he only represents Democrats and that he can cut programs that only hurt Democrats. But in fact, his people, as he likes to think of them, Red America, they are overly represented among people who, for example, get the ACA subsidies. It's his own people that are hurting. Those tariffs, it's his farmers who voted for him. So this notion that somehow he's being their champion and only going after the bad people is nonsense. I mean, you look all around the country, small towns, really not just on the coast, but in the center, the heartland of America. And these people understand what's happening to them. It's not like prices aren't going up in the Midwest. They're going up everywhere. And we even have some international, I think, footage. And here's Canada, having America not be the leader of the free world, not stand as the colossus for democracy is hugely important, hugely disappointing to our friends around the world, whether it's Canada, whether it's Spain, where have you. Norm, we have always been that beacon of light. We've always been the leader of the free world. And now it's up for grabs. We really don't know.
John Alter talked to us tonight about the importance of people power. That's one of the 5 Ps, together with court proceedings, political leadership, press coverage like the independent coverage we do here, and performance in and at the polls.
Yes.
Those are the factors. Donald Trump is the most unpopular president because of all of those disasters that Jen enumerated. The most unpopular president, other than his first term in the history of the United States, 8 months in. People don't like it. And the special elections at the polls, Democrats have outperformed or by 16 points or won 42 out of 43 special elections, with very important bellwethers coming, New Jersey, Virginia, Pennsylvania, that I think will be a referendum on that chaos that you described, Jen.
Absolutely. And if you went out, you marched today, and you live in one of those states, get out and vote, bring your friends. And if you don't, find those websites for those candidates, find the website for Prop 50 in California, find the website for the Supreme Court justices in Pennsylvania. We're going to be covering it all. So it has been a fabulous day, a fabulous time with Norm. We have more fun than you can ever imagine. If we have this much fun on screen, can you imagine what it's like, off screen? We are going to, yes.
Here's my sign from today. And it also describes those editorial meetings that Jen is
with anger
Exactly. And I have my hat for Love and Anger, LA.
There you go. There you go. Well, folks, we are going to close with a overview of a montage of some of those great signs that we saw today. And then we're going to end it all with the Resistance Revival Chorus with Renee and Giddens. And we have permission to use their song, All Fascists Are Bound to Lose. So enjoy it all, folks. We will see you back on Monday. Thank you, Contrarians, for all you do. Have a great night.